athlete versus and spring. Begin!
After this battle, your family won't be the only thing you've lost, because your raps are worse than the entire Holocaust.
Now, I don't know about you, but growing up, I was a huge fan of what I like to call the punk-ass kid being an asshole children's story genre. I'm talking about Judy B. Jones, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Captain Underpants had elements of that, Horrible Harry, not Horrid Henry, but also that genre, Horrible Harry. Big Nate wasn't really an asshole, but he did get in trouble a lot because he was lazy, close enough. Judy B. Jones was like the first ever books with chapters I ever read, which was like a mind-blowing concept when you're in 2nd grade. And like any kid in school during the prime of No Child Left Behind, I love me some Wimpy Kid. And also, Horrid Henry. And why? Because when I had like less than 100 subscribers for 9 years straight, the show's YouTube channel would be the only thing that would show up when you'd search my name. Thanks to the algorithm, nobody could watch my Ninjago fanfictions where the camera was barely in focus. And one of the series of the punk-ass kid being an asshole genre I enjoyed was Judy Moody. Now, this wasn't like an absolute favorite, but I still read like all the books I could get my hands on at the time. Written by Megan McDonald with illustrations by Peter H. Reynolds, it was about a girl with some attitude. It would span 18 main series books, 6 books in a spin-off series about her brother Stink, 3 crossover books where Judy and Stink are center focus, and another series aimed at a younger demographic, which gave more focus to a lot of the secondary cast, spanning 26 books that I never read. Now, as a kid, during the peak of my interest in the series, I would have loved to seen a movie of it, but it turns out it did have a movie. It just came out a couple years before I got into the series. So the Judy Moody movie immediately got on my watch list at the time. And when I pulled up the trailer on YouTube, I remembered the advertisements being aired on Nick and Cartoon Network a few years back and thinking it looked stupid. But a smidge older me probably got it from a local ghetto Ohioan public library or something, and you know what? 7-year-old me was correct about 11-year-old me. This movie is toad piss.
Do you have anything you want to say to women for having owned this?
I'm sorry, women.
Hey y'all, Scott here.
But credit is due where credit is due. It probably taught me the concept of good things having adaptations, so I guess I learned something. Now, in terms of live-action adaptations and children's movies of the punk-ass kid genre, there is one undisputed king, the original Wimpy Kid trilogy. Lots of other adaptations of things with similar source material to Wimpy Kid started to get adaptations in the 2010s, and the Judy Moody movie was one of them. And if you haven't seen the original Wimpy Kid trilogy, to keep it brief since they've been talked about to death by nostalgic man children and even this guy that looks a lot like Daniel the Demon Slayer if he didn't slay demons, they are genuinely very well-made children's movies. Some of the best of its kind, actually.
Hey! What the?
You guys got something you want to tell me?
No?
Yes, there's some early 2010s random humor that's a little dated.
Wake up in the morning feeling like P. Diddy.
And some of the gross out is a little cringe-worthy, but besides that, they're actually worth going out of your way to watch as an adult without children, not just for nostalgia value. And if you're my age and never somehow saw them, you should. They're not something you'd expect to hold up, but they completely do. Let's briefly go over some of the other movies trying to cash in on the Wimpy Kid movies. Get it? Because there's a little bit too much of Zachary Gordon in his underwear? 5 stars. Dan Schneider approved. And I'm not saying that these books are ripping off Wimpy Kid, some of them debuting before actually, but adaptations were clearly conceived to bank off of Wimpy Kid's fellow adaptational success. Another book series I loved growing up was Timmy Failure, and it got a Disney Plus live-action adaptation in 2020. Also by Disney, Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. I remember seeing trailers for and thinking like, what the f***? They're putting Disney Channel movies in theaters now? And props to 10-year-old me, because that's exactly what this shit looks like. Not to be confused with the animated TV movie from 1990.
I think I'll move to Australia.
Horrid Henry the movie, because the show is so beloved. I never read Dear Dumb Diary growing up because I'm now just realizing the only books with girl protagonist I read were punk-ass tomboys with the exception of Cam Jansen. And despite having a diary format, it actually came out the same year as the original Wimpy Kid 2004 webcomics, the first proper book not releasing until 2007. So that was simply a coincidence in the journal entry standard of children's storytelling that was forming in the mid to late 2000s. In fact, it actually looks a lot more like Captain Underpants, at least formatting-wise, which came out in '97 more than Wimpy Kid, and it was also written by a dude, Jim Benton. Meaning that I probably would have actually liked this series growing up. I'll take the L for not even picking up one of these. It also had an adaptation of this genre. I mean, like, the source material similar name got it greenlit alone. Jessica Darling's It List, yuck. And if we're talking actual Wimpy Kid ripoffs, there's a ton of those too, and these were the author's fault. I never read them, but 2009's Dork Diaries was somewhat well-liked for something clearly way too similar. I mean, like, it got 16 books. That has to be doing something right? I mean, like, you could yassify anything and a white would still love it. They say not to judge a book by its cover, but just look at it. Look at it! It's like the irate gamer or dinosaur with 42 heads. Like, yeah, it's there, but it's not the actual AVGN or Pan Pizza, so there's no reason to watch it, or at least I think. You know, Pan Pizza, the internet's John Lennon because he has a Yoko Ono. Apparently, there was a movie adaptation that Lionsgate threw in the garbage. The source material was that unoriginal. Now, I'm not gonna say what race, what people the author of Dork Diaries is. It was a black author who stole from Jeff Kinney. And how could we forget the countless Minecraft-themed ripoff books? Okay, well, I'm not sure if they're supposed to be, like, parodies or ripoffs, but I've never read them. But I refuse to read the diary entries of A Farting Creeper, Wimpy Steve, 8-Bit Warrior, and Minecraft Zombie, which also ties into the unofficial Minecraft books rabbit hole with such classics like Stinky Steve 4 versus the Burpinator.
The sky. It's a bird.
Like, I understand, it's the most amount of fun you can have while playing an app, but holy hell, P.T. Evans, what is the matter with you? This guy was like a grown adult and was like, yeah, I'm gonna write a book about f***ing Herobrine himself. Yeah, that's funny. That's what I should spend months of my life, even years, doing, publishing. His other series, Mine Cat, has like MS Paint art in it. Middle school, worst years of my life, was also a series I never got into, but I did see the Wimpy Kid ripoff-ass adaptation in theaters, actually, with my friend who was a huge fan of the series at the time and wanted to see it. This theater literally had from 2007 in it, by the way. This isn't a Wimpy Kid ripoff movie, but its source material has some similarities, so I thought the Big Nate show was worth mentioning. I've only seen clips and the promotional shorts, but it's been heavily criticized for being unfaithful, and holy hell, as someone who grew up with the novels and comic compilations, yeah, this looks really unfaithful.
Butt cheeks, do-da-da-do-da-do-da, butt cheeks. Butt cheeks.
5 stars, Dan Schneider approved. I'll just stick to Judy Moody's Wimpy Kid ripoff ass movie because it's the only one I'm nostalgic for both its adaptation and source material.
Somebody farted.
Say, look at this. I've been cleaning out my nest, and I found an old book of my poetry.
Exploded diaper all over the place. Exploded diaper.
The Judy Moody movie would adapt the 10th book, The Not Bummer Summer. And why the 10th? Well, merchandising reasons. It released the same year, or at least I think. Most sources say that this book came out in 2018, but I know for a fact it didn't because I saw this movie and I'd be in high school by then. So it probably got a re-release obscuring the original's release and subsequently documentation. But some sources say that it came out in 2012, meaning that it was an adaptation of the movie. I have no clue. I'm pretty sure it was produced simultaneously in 2011 with the film, because Megan McDonald herself co-wrote the film with Kathy Waugh, who wrote a bunch of PBS Kids stuff and created the series Molly of Denali. So maybe only Mrs. McDonald's can only write a film that's bad. That makes the most sense from a business standpoint. I mean, like, why start with book 10? This series is actually surprisingly more obscure than I thought, considering the quantity of books and the fact that it got an adaptation to begin with. Maybe the studio was just really stretching for ideas to cash in on Wimpy Kid. It was produced by Smokewood Entertainment and distributed by Relativity Media, which I've never heard of, although Universal did internationally distribute. So this random studio just so happened to scoop up an also random part of my childhood. I guess it was a cheap license. I can't say I've ever heard anyone else bring up this book series in public. For something with a major motion picture adaptation, book publishing info online is far and few between, assuming I'm snooping in the right places. The wiki is so empty and desperate for pages. One of the pages is characters who wear glasses. The plot is that Judy comes up with a terrorist plot, dare map, to calculate the epicness of her summer, meaning that her entire summer plan consists of her friend group convincing each other to do stupid shit. Judy setting goals for stupid shit. And like any movie of the era, there's a scene where they get out of school for the summer with emo music. But her friends have to part ways for the summer to Judy's dismay, and even worse, her parents are like, "Hey, Peanut, you want to live with a hooker for the whole summer? You're old enough, right?" And she has to be babysat by her LA crack whore aunt, who is unsurprisingly an irresponsible piece of shit. She's like having Diddy party withdrawals, kicking boys to the curb unless they look like Mick Jagger, clearly wondering how late she could terminate a pregnancy in the state.
Okay, more leverage. Hang in there.
As you can see, she's very experienced on bouncing on things. So Judy has to make it the best summer ever with her hooker/crackhead babysitter, meaning it's scene of dumb shit after dumb shit after dumb shit after dumb f***ing shit, which wouldn't matter if it was funny, but it's just dumb shit. Well, besides all the filler of her friends going away elsewhere for the summer, which takes up an eternity.
Yeah, it's a circus camp. I'm gonna learn how to walk on a tightrope and...
He got gloomed and died 3 days later from exposure.
Get down!
After the Peace Corps, I trekked across the Sahara, and then I went to the...
5 stars. Dan Schneider approved.
Scat. Now, scientific term for animal droppings, also known as poop, dung, or doo-doo.
This is clearly just an excuse to put the word poop on the screen. I hate it when kids' movies do this to, like, visually convey information. It's so desperate to be quirky that it's tacky. It's not as bad as, like, Night of the Living Fred, which does it in the worst possible way I've ever seen.
No, if I knew, I wouldn't be scared. Now would I? And why are you so scared? He's just a teacher.
Prior to revisiting this movie, the 2 things I remembered were the throwing up scene and the poop sandwich scene. And not because I thought they were funny. The vomiting scene I also remember being in like every trailer, which is what turned me against this movie to begin with, before I got into the books. For context, the nerd character, who has glasses by the way, thanks Wiki, eats a bunch of blue and he pukes on the roller coaster and it's blue puke. Think has a subplot where he's trying to find Bigfoot and he grabs a bunch of turds from the backyards because kids just love playing with turds. And Ashley Olsen, babysitter, is hungover and puts Theodore's sticky little nuggets in the sandwich. It's funny because literal animal shit from an asshole is a sandwich ingredient. Laugh. I swear, kids' movie marketing always hypes up the most obnoxious joke, and then you sit down and watch the damn thing, and you cringe even harder at it with full context. Like, why did circus afro have to be in like every Madagascar 3 trailer? Oh, it's the Smurf blue puking scene. Give it a fucking round of applause. Yeah, and that's another thing about children's movies circa No Child Left Behind. There is a ton of gross-out comedy, which is contrary to where it originated from in 90s animated series.
Did you say something about a child's behind?
Yeah, he definitely said something about a child's left behind. I heard him.
Despite the fact that, like, gross-out comedy doesn't work in PG live action, you know, because it uses, like, actual people, it would have to be violent to be disgusting. Nobody wants to look at, like, a homicide victim for laughs and not scares. There's also, like, a third act breakup because Glasses is like, Judy, stop daring people to do stupid shit, you dumb bitch. Plus, you're a ginger, ew. There's zero attempt at the characters making up. Glasses just shows up in the next scene interrupting everything and, like, they're cool again, I guess? Like, did they just resolve the beef off screen? If you're not gonna show them makeup, why did they break up in the first place? Like in Wimpy Kid after the most emotional dialogue in human history.
Don't come by my house. We're done.
Greg eats the cheese to help Relly because he does care about him deep down, even if he was a piece of shit. Like, how do you make a third act breakup without a resolution? Not even the laziest and shittest kids movies that utilize this tired cliche are this inconfident at incorporating it. Like, how did Megan McDonald, a professional author, not realize something is missing? The one thing I can give them credit for is that they actually made a fake Night of the Living Dead parody that causes the stupid-ass third act breakup.
They have taken over the small town of Pennsylvania. Lock your doors, bolt your windows, head for the basement. And if you don't have a basement, build one.
The LA crack whore aunt, like I said, piece of shit, not disciplinary. But she could have actually allowed for Judy to realize that she could be reasonably disciplined to begin with, or on the other end of the spectrum, realize that she's probably not the most responsible person and not a good role model and should not strive to be like her at all.
But my legs get tired standing out in the parking lot handing out stale Tootsie Rolls to you little rugrats.
Of course, Judy succeeds by her own logic. I'm having the best summer ever. It's fabulous. Like, I'm not saying everything has to have a moral, but wasted potential to any capacity is wasted potential. Maybe she could have learned that it's in the way, or that some things aren't worth doing. I mean, like, I guess she does sort of learn that all the stupid going haywire was thrilling, but there's no realization progressively. There's very little character development. It's only in, like, the last 2 minutes. Magically, all of a sudden, the summer was not. Bummer. Her teacher, Mr. Todd, is played by Urkel.
Oh, class 3T, you'll want to look for me. Cause if somehow you find me, there's a prize, oh yes sirree.
If this wasn't a kid's movie, he could sing the original lyrics, if you know what I'm saying. There are a small handful of animated imagination sequences, like Doug, but it looks like a allergy medicine commercial. It's not a sparing use of multi-mediums. Again, Wimpy Kid, it had animation all throughout the film, mainly to interlude time jumps or motivations visually.
Greg Heffley, please do not say the N-word in my classroom. Hey, you. Excuse me.
Like, the books weren't graphic novels, but they did have illustrations, so there's nothing, like, super iconic to adapt, but ew. Which further asks the question, why wasn't the whole thing a cartoon? Now, not that illustrated novel in live action equals bad, Wimpy Kid is peak, but it's always cool to see an art style come to life. But a majority of this genre of movie doesn't do that because it's just cheaper to do it in live action. And when they did finally start making animated Wimpy Kid adaptations that resemble the illustration style, it looked like complete ploopy because they didn't try. It's like the Peanuts movie without any salt and pepper. Like, this movie got released in theaters, and this is the best they could do? And by the way, it was a bomb. It barely made its budget back. On the subject of visuals, they did attempt to replicate Judy's haircut in live action with the singular curl, similar to how Greg had, like, the 3 springs on the back of his head, similar to the portrayal of himself. In fact, most of the character designs are actually pretty well adapted in live action. There are also some commendable references to other stuff from the books I can recall, like Judy's tutor, who is also a college student, and Stink's giant jawbreaker from one of his books, and possibly even more reference I missed, as McDonald did help co-write. It being a summer story, I remember Mr. Todd being a much more prominent character in the books because of the setting, as well as Judy's classmate and rival Jessica Finch, who gets a couple appearances. Were they setting up the Judy Moody cinematic universe? Probably. The child acting isn't horrible. Judy's bipolar enough, enthusiastic and moody when necessary. Stink gets the annoying little brother with a speech impediment archetype down enough. More like Judy Moody gets a stupid-ass movie that tastes worse than herpes from an LA hooker's booty, covered in duty. This movie is clearly era-defining for all the wrong reasons. It reeks of 2000s and early 2010s kids movie everything. I think little kids might like it, but not really like chapter book, later elementary school target demographic of the source material would like it. In all its Disney Channel-ass glory, it's just too low-brow and vanilla, hence to why I wasn't a fan of this when I was in the target audience of the book series, and even as a younger kid prior, I thought it looked stupid. Like a 5-year-old might like it, but not a 9-year-old that could read the books. It completely destroys all the chances of fans liking it, and that should be a majority of the audience in mind. And I'm no child psychologist, but trust me, there's a huge lexile difference between DuckDuckGo and Junie B. Jones, and this is Junie B. Jones melted into DuckDuckGo, covered in for a quick bill, her. The cherry on top being that it's just also a Disney Channel movie in theaters. It's a bad adaptation for a demographic that doesn't exist and not pleasant childhood memory, let me tell you that.